Hey everyone. Tonight we won't walk through battlefields or grand parades. Instead, we'll step into a wooden barrack where frost creeps through every crack, and men huddle like shadows against the wind. Blankets are traded like gold, and the only pillow is a bundle of lice-ridden straw. You've heard of Stalin's speeches and Soviet victories, but the Gulag's true executioner wasn't a guard with a rifle. It was the Siberian night. A darkness so cold it froze men to the floor, turned corpses into bedmates, and forced prisoners to burn their shoes, their dignity, even their faith, just to wake up alive. This isn't about ideology or politics. It's survival counted in breaths of steam, in prayers whispered through broken teeth, in the silence after a man stops shivering. If history's raw truths intrigue you, hit like and subscribe, and tell me, where are you listening from? And what's the harshest night you've ever faced now? Close your eyes. Let's step into the frozen nightmare of the Gulag. You feel the train slow, metallic groan as it finally grinds to a halt, a jarring symphony of iron and ice that rattles through your very bones. The air within the crowded car, thin and stale, offers no comfort, only the lingering scent of fear and damp wool. Then, with a harsh, unyielding hiss, the heavy doors slide open, and it isn't merely air that rushes in. It's a physical entity, a brutal, unseen force that slams into your chest. The temperature, a staggering 40 degrees Fahrenheit, rips through your threadbare clothing as if it were nothing more than a thin, delicate veil. Your breath, a precious part of you, instantly crystallizes into a cloud of frozen agony, stinging your nostrils and burning your lungs with each frantic gasp. As you step onto the platform, the frozen ground bites through your worn shoes, and the vast, indifferent landscape of Siberia stretches before you. An endless canvas of white under a sky the color of bruised plums. You watch, your eyes wide with a quiet, terrible dread. As others falter, their legs giving way beneath them. They don't simply fall. They seem to crumple, their bodies hitting the packed snow with an unsettling finality. Their lives, you realize with a jolt that sends a shiver colder than the wind through your spine, are extinguished not by a bullet, but by the insidious, silent grasp of this Siberian night. Death arrives, swift and merciless, before they even take a single step into the camp. The guards, their faces obscured by shadows and swirling frost, offer no pity. Their voices, though muffled by the howling wind, carry a chilling, guttural promise that cuts through the din tonight. The frost will decide who survives. You see figures, distinct in the swirling snow, being dragged away, their limp forms tied to posts at the edges of the encampment. They are left there, grotesque, immobile experiments to see how long a human body can endure this impossible cold. A whisper, laced with dark, cynical humor, floats on the wind, that the death reports will simply read, "Cause, no coat." It's not a sentence of years, you begin to understand, but a sentence of hours, perhaps even mere minutes. You try to clench your fingers, but they feel like blocks of ice, unresponsive and alien. The cold seeps not just into your skin, but into your very hopes, turning them brittle and fragile, threatening to snap with the slightest movement. The quiet thought surfaces, insistent and terrifying, if the very first night can claim so many. What will become of you by morning? You stand there, a solitary speck against the immense, crushing indifference of this frozen world. The icy breath of winter already claiming its first silent victims. And you wonder, with a terrible, sinking certainty, if you, too, are next, destined to become just another casualty in this brutal, chilling introduction to the Gulag. The command is a barked word, sharp and fragmented by the wind, urging you forward, pushing you towards a cluster of low-slung, dark shapes in the deepening twilight. These are the barracks, you realize. The promised shelter from the relentless assault of the open air. But as you draw nearer, the illusion of refuge dissolves. They are not sturdy structures, but crude, wooden huts, hastily thrown together from rough-hewn timbers. Every seam, every joint, every plank seems to be riddled with wide-open cracks, gaping wounds through which the relentless, frigid wind whistles and moans, carrying with it fine particles of snow that dance like cruel sprites. It is as if the builders meant to invite the cold in, rather than keep it out. You step inside, and the sudden shift in the air is palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that presses down on you. It is a strange amalgamation of odors that immediately assaults your senses, the earthy scent of straw, damp and rotting, the acrid tang of unwashed bodies and sweat, a faint, metallic hint of old blood, and the unmistakable, stomach-churning stench of human feces. This, you realize with a slow, creeping horror, is the Gulag perfume, a sickening signature of this place, clinging to every surface, saturating the very air you breathe. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that it will cling to your memory long after this night is over. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, revealing rows upon rows of triple bunks, stacked precariously high against the walls. They are not merely crowded, they are crammed. 7 or 8 bodies sardined onto each narrow, wooden shelf. Some are barely distinguishable in the gloom, mere lumps under threadbare rags. Others are tragically clear, still forms, unmoving, eyes vacant, left on the bunks until the morning's grim tally. You are told by the hushed whispers of the veterans, their voices hollowed by countless nights, that these corpses will remain there, silent bedfellows, until the first pale light of dawn allows them to be dragged to a designated corner, awaiting the frozen ground. A guard, passing by, lets out a harsh, rasping chuckle, his words cutting through the heavy air. Why complain? You've got human central heating, don't you? The cynicism stings, a bitter pill to swallow in the face of such raw desperation. Shalamov's words, echoing from some forgotten corner of a memoir, drift into your mind, though you can't quite recall reading them. A bunk was not for sleep, but for waiting your turn to die. You search for a place, any place, on these tiered wooden shelves, knowing that in this barracks, a bed is not a haven for rest, but merely a temporary holding cell, a collective coffin where the lines between the living and the departed blur in the suffocating darkness. And as you try to find a sliver of space, you wonder, with a growing sense of dread, when your turn to lie still will come. The chill inside the barracks is a living entity, an unseen predator that stalks every corner, every shadow, and every breath you take. It gnaws at your fingers and toes, seeps into your joints, and finds its way into the very core of your being. You quickly learn that survival here is not just about avoiding the guards or finding enough food. It is a relentless, savage battle for every precious degree of warmth. A torn, grimy blanket, once dismissed as mere fabric, transforms before your eyes into a treasure beyond measure. It is a currency more valuable than any ruble, more coveted than bread itself, often traded for a week's meager rations, a testament to the desperate lengths to which men will go to stave off the encroaching cold. As you navigate the crowded, suffocating space of the barrack, you witness the silent, brutal hierarchy of warmth unfold. The stronger, those with a lingering spark of vitality or a more cunning spirit, have seized the coveted spots nearest the rudimentary, often ineffective stoves that glow with a weak, hesitant heat in the center of the hut. These are the positions of power, of relative comfort, where the cold's bite is slightly less keen, for you and for countless others. The only available spaces are the drafty corners, pressed against the icy wooden walls where the wind finds every crack, every imperfection, and whispers its chilling lullaby directly into your ear. You feel the cold seep through your thin clothing, turning your back into a canvas of creeping numbness. The struggle for warmth doesn't end with claiming a spot. It continues, relentlessly, through the long, silent hours of the night. You hear the rustle of straw, the quiet grunts, the almost imperceptible shoves. Some, in the depths of their desperation, will push a bunkmate off their narrow perch in the middle of the night, not out of malice, but to steal their meager space, to claim that precious sliver of warmth. A grim, unwritten law circulates among the prisoners, a piece of Gulag wisdom passed in hushed tones. Those in the middle live, those on the edges die. It is a stark reminder of the thin line between survival and oblivion. One man, you overhear, recounts a tale with a hollow laugh, a dark piece of humor that is only funny because of the sheer, absurd horror of it. He dreamt, he said, of fire, of glorious, searing heat, only to wake with a start to the chilling reality that he was being urinated on by a bunkmate who sought to generate a fleeting, desperate warmth. The NKVD reports, you later learn, are filled with accounts of savage fights and even killings over a single, tattered scrap of cloth. A testament to the animalistic drive for self-preservation that overtakes all other human instincts in this frigid hell. You begin to understand, with a chilling certainty, that in this desolate place, the battle for warmth is a constant, unforgiving war. And you wonder if you, too, would kill to steal a patch of warmth, just to see another dawn. The barracks, with all their horrors, are still a form of collective misery, a shared purgatory. But there exists a deeper circle of hell, a place of even more profound suffering, the punishment cells, or kartzer. The very mention of the word sends a tremor of dread through the already brittle atmosphere of the camp. To be sent there is not just a punishment. It is a deliberate, calculated attempt to strip you of every last vestige of hope, to isolate you utterly against the unforgiving elements. One day, you find yourself led away, perhaps for a minor infraction, a perceived defiance, or simply at the whim of a guard. The door clangs shut behind you with a sound of chilling finality, echoing the closing of a tomb. You are plunged into an absolute, suffocating darkness, so profound that it feels like a physical weight pressing down on your eyes. Your outstretched hand meets not just cold, but ice. The walls of this small, claustrophobic cell are coated in a thick, crystalline layer, reflecting the faint, phantom light that seems to penetrate nowhere. The air is still, heavy, and piercingly cold, far more brutal than even the open Siberian wind. You feel your feet sink into something wet and yielding. The floor, you realize with a jolt of horror, is not just cold, but flooded. A shallow pool of frigid water or melted ice that seeps into your already frozen boots and socks, instantly numbing your extremities. There is no straw here, no single shred of fabric or a blanket to offer even the illusion of warmth. There is no light, no window, only the suffocating embrace of the dark and the biting chill that gnaws relentlessly at every exposed inch of your skin. To sleep in this environment is a cruel mockery of the word. You are forced to remain upright, to stand. For to lie down would mean sinking into the icy water, inviting a swifter, more agonizing death. Your back instinctively presses against the ice-coated wall, seeking a temporary brace, a moment of respite from the strain of standing. But the contact is agonizing. The ice draws the heat from your body with merciless efficiency. And within what feels like moments, your skin begins to adhere to the frozen surface. You can almost feel the delicate tissue being pulled, stretched, and then, in the morning's grim awakening, it tears away, leaving raw, bleeding patches on your back. It is a torture designed to flay you layer by layer, body and soul. The guards, with their cruel, cynical humor, would often laugh, their voices echoing eerily through the cold stone corridors. Stand up to sleep saves us beds. It is a chilling jest, a perverse twist on comfort. Most, you learn, never lasted more than 3 nights in these Siberian coffins. The cold, the darkness, the relentless standing, the terror of adhering to the ice, it all conspires to shatter the human spirit, to extinguish the spark of life with an agonizing slowness. As the hours stretch, each one an eternity, you begin to question, with a profound and aching weariness, whether you would choose the brutal lash of the whip outside, a swift, sharp pain, or this slow, drawn-out death within this coffin of ice. The cold inside the barracks is an unrelenting siege, a pervasive force that permeates every fiber of your being. You huddle, drawing your knees to your chest, trying to make your body as small as possible, to conserve the meager warmth you still possess. But the cold still finds its way in, seeping through your threadbare clothing, chilling you to the bone. It is in these moments of utter desperation, when the thin veil between life and death feels almost transparent, that you witness, and eventually participate in, the most profound and unsettling acts of survival. You lie on your bunk, a sliver of wood shared with too many others, the cold pressing in on all sides. Beside you, or perhaps above or below, is a body that has gone still. There is no breathing, no shivering, no restless shifting. The warmth has left them, replaced by the deep, terrifying chill of true stillness. In the Gulag, the dead are not immediately removed. They remain in their bunks, silent witnesses to the continued struggle of the living for hours, sometimes until morning light. And it is then that you realize a terrible, pragmatic truth: the dead, in their final moments, still possess a faint, lingering warmth, a ghostly echo of life. The instinct to survive overrides all other sensibilities. You find yourself pressing closer, inch by agonizing inch, against the stiffening form of a corpse. You feel the initial shock of its coldness, a deeper chill than the ambient air. But beneath that, a fragile, almost imperceptible warmth remains. It is the last vestige of the body's heat, a fleeting gift from the recently departed, and you cling to it as if it were the most precious commodity in the world. You are not alone in this grim act. Others around you do the same, their movements slow and deliberate, their faces etched with a mixture of despair and an animalistic will to live. Some, you observe with a quiet ache in your chest, cling to their dead friends, whispering hushed words into the cold air. They pretend, with a heartbreaking tenderness, that their comrade is still alive, still listening, still breathing. It is a desperate act of remembrance, a final solace, but also a practical one. These frozen bodies become makeshift windbreaks, shields against the biting drafts that seep through the cracks in the walls. They are a silent, unmoving barrier, absorbing the first onslaught of the Siberian night, offering a tiny, crucial reprieve to the living. A dark, unsettling humor pervades even these moments of deepest despair. You hear the hushed, almost cynical whispers. He's the perfect bunkmate, he doesn't snore, just cold. It is a morbid joke, a way to cope with the unbearable reality. One memoir, perhaps by Shalamov, echoes in the back of your mind, I survived only because I held my friend's corpse all night. In the Gulag, you come to understand. Death becomes a perverse ally, a silent partner in the dance of survival. You close your eyes against the encroaching darkness, not knowing if the person pressed against you still breathes, or if their final, chilling embrace is the only thing keeping you from becoming another still, silent form in the frozen night. There are layers of punishment, each more insidious and soul-crushing than the last. Beyond the crowded barracks and the brutal isolation cells, there exists a method of systematic eradication that is as simple as it is terrifying: forced sleep directly on the snow. It is a sentence without words, a game of roulette where the odds are impossibly stacked against you, and the house always wins. One night, for a perceived transgression, perhaps you moved too slowly, spoke out of turn, or simply drew the attention of a particularly cruel guard, you are thrust outside the barracks. The air is sharper here, cleaner, yet infinitely more hostile. The wind whips around you, biting at your exposed skin, stealing your breath. Below you, the ground is an unbroken expanse of pristine, unforgiving snow, stretching into an endless, starless void. This is your bed for the night, a cruel, mocking parody of rest. You are not alone in this grim sentence. Other figures, hunched and shivering, dot the snowy landscape, each a solitary island of suffering. The cold that radiates from the snow beneath you is unlike any you have felt before. It is not just the cold of the air, it is a primal, sucking force that seems to drain the very life from your body through your feet, through your back, through every point of contact with the icy ground. It feels as if the earth itself is conspiring against you, actively drawing your warmth into its frozen depths, faster and more efficiently than the air ever could. A desperate, almost primal instinct takes over. You witness others, and perhaps you too attempt it. The desperate act of urinating onto the snow, hoping to create a temporary, melted patch. For a brief, agonizing moment, the warmth of your body's expulsion creates a small, dark stain against the brilliant white. But this fleeting reprieve is a cruel deception. The water quickly freezes, binding you to the ground, cementing your fate. You become one with the ice, your clothing, your skin, adhering to the newly formed patch, making any movement a wrenching, painful battle against the frozen earth. By morning, if you are lucky enough to still retain a flicker of consciousness, the scene is one of surreal horror. The guards move among the still forms, not with shovels to clear snow, but to pry what they grimly refer to as meat boards off the ice. The bodies are rigid, frozen solid in contorted positions, their faces often reflecting the silent scream of their final moments. The dark humor of the guards echoes through the icy air, their voices devoid of true mirth, only a chilling indifference. Free stone bed for everyone. It is a stark pronouncement of your worth, or lack thereof, in this brutal world. One night, just one single night, on the bare, unforgiving ground is a death sentence, a guaranteed pathway to oblivion. As you lie there, feeling the life slowly draining from your limbs, you wonder how many more hours you could possibly last on the naked snow, before you too become a silent, frozen statue in this desolate landscape. In the brutal, soul-numbing cold of the Gulag, warmth is not just a comfort, it is the most precious commodity, a lifeline that promises another sunrise. Yet, any open flame within the wooden barracks is strictly forbidden, a direct challenge to the guard's authority, punishable by an instant, brutal beating, or something far worse. The very thought of a flickering ember ignites a desperate longing within you, a primal yearning for the gentle caress of heat against your frost-bitten skin. The nights stretch into an eternity of shivering and silent suffering. The cold seeps into your very bones, and your muscles ache with a relentless, deep chill. It is during these hours, shrouded in pervasive darkness, that the forbidden act of seeking fire takes on an almost sacred significance. Whispers circulate, hushed tales of desperate ingenuity. You see men, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination, carefully, stealthily, smuggling tiny embers in tin cans, their hands shaking not just from cold, but from the immense risk. Each spark is a rebellious act, a defiant gesture against the all-encompassing tyranny of the cold. The air inside the barrack is thick with the scent of straw, sweat, and despair. Adding another odor, even a faint one, is a dangerous gamble. A wisp of smoke, a telltale sign of combustion, can betray your presence, drawing the swift and brutal attention of the guards. Detection means not only a beating, but potentially the loss of the precious, life-sustaining ember, and perhaps even the lives of those sharing the precious secret. Yet, the desperation for warmth drives men to extraordinary, and often disgusting, lengths. You witness and participate in the grim ritual of burning anything that might ignite, anything that might offer a fleeting spark of heat. They burn dung, dried and compacted, its foul stench filling the already fetid air. A smell so pervasive it becomes the new eau de Gulag, the grim scent of burning excrement, a dark humor for the darkest times. They burn fragments of wood, stolen from the forest during labor. They burn shoes, their precious, worn leather disintegrating into acrid smoke, leaving prisoners barefoot in the unforgiving cold. A trade of one agony for another. Some, in their utter desperation, even cut and burn strands of their own hair. The sickening smell of burning keratin filling the air. a testament to the primal need for warmth. Heat, you quickly come to understand, is not just contraband. It is a currency more valuable than bread, more cherished than freedom. It is the elusive promise of another breath, another heartbeat. You watch as a man carefully cups a tiny flame, his face illuminated by its fragile glow, a momentary beacon in the suffocating darkness. The risk is immense, the consequences potentially fatal. And as you huddle closer to the faint, almost imperceptible warmth, you begin to question, with a profound and aching weariness, whether that hidden flame will ultimately save you, offering another chance at life, or if its telltale smoke will betray you, exposing you to an even greater, more brutal punishment. Survival in the Gulag is not a matter of strength alone, but of an almost animalistic ingenuity, a relentless battle against the elements, using whatever meager resources can be scavenged. When the bitter wind howls through the barracks, and the cold seeps through every thread of your thin, inadequate clothing, the mind becomes a forge, hammering out desperate inventions, turning the mundane into the miraculous. Your eyes, once accustomed to seeing objects for their intended purpose, now scan the desolate landscape for any discarded item, any scrap that might offer a sliver of protection. Newspapers, pilfered from official communiques or forgotten personal effects, are no longer just pages bearing printed words. They become a vital layer of insulation. You watch as prisoners, their fingers stiff with cold, carefully tear them into strips, crumpling them and stuffing them inside their coats, shirts, and trousers. The rustle of paper beneath their clothes becomes a familiar, almost comforting sound, a fragile barrier against the encroaching chill. Bark, stripped from fallen trees during work details, is similarly pressed into service, its rough, fibrous texture offering a slightly better defense. Straw, the ubiquitous, lice-ridden bedding of the barracks, becomes another versatile material. It is stuffed into every available crevice, every loose seam in clothing, forming a crude but effective padding that traps a thin layer of air, a tiny pocket of warmth. You learn to appreciate the subtle weight it adds, the faint scratchiness against your skin, knowing it is a small price to pay for a moment of thermal reprieve. Women, even amidst their own profound suffering, find ways to express an enduring strength and creativity. You observe them, their hands moving with practiced, if trembling, dexterity, unraveling precious scarves, perhaps a last remnant from their former lives, to carefully re-knit the yarn into socks. These socks, though rough and imperfect, offer a crucial layer of protection for their feet, battling against the insidious cold that constantly threatens frostbite and amputation. It is a quiet act of defiance, a small assertion of humanity in a place designed to strip it away. The struggle against the cold drives innovation to its very limits. You hear whispers of men who, with astonishing resourcefulness, construct makeshift stoves from discarded tin cans, carefully punching holes for ventilation, creating miniature furnaces. In these tiny contraptions, they burn anything flammable: straw, dung, and most tragically, the soles of their own shoes. The acrid smoke filling the air with a bitter testament to their will to survive. The dark humor of the guards offers another cynical jab. Winter coats, courtesy of Pravda, they'd sneer, referring to the newspaper insulation. But for you, and for countless others, creativity becomes the last, most vital weapon against the relentless march of death. As you feel the cold once again seep into your bones, you reflect, with a quiet desperation, what precious thing you would burn, What essential piece of yourself you would sacrifice, just to last one more night. The snow, a ubiquitous and relentless presence in the Siberian landscape, is a paradox in the Gulag. It is both the enemy, the relentless source of the killing cold, and, in moments of extreme desperation, a strange, ambivalent ally. For some, it offers a fleeting, dangerous promise of survival, a chance to escape the biting wind and the drafty barracks, even if that escape means burying yourself alive. You witness, with a mix of awe and chilling apprehension, the ancient wisdom of the indigenous Siberian natives being resurrected by the prisoners. Men, driven to the absolute edge of endurance, begin to dig, their frost-bitten fingers, numb and clumsy, claw at the packed snow, hollowing out small, coffin-like caves. These snow caves, or igloos in a rudimentary sense, are an attempt to leverage the insulating properties of snow itself, to create a temporary shelter, a pocket of stillness against the furious wind. To crawl into one of these cramped, icy chambers is to enter a world of suffocating stillness. The air inside is remarkably calmer, a few precious degrees warmer than the gale outside. But the act of finding rest within it is fraught with peril. One wrong movement in your sleep, a shift of your head against the powdery ceiling, can cause the fragile structure to collapse, turning your sanctuary into a grave. The terror of suffocation, of being buried alive beneath a suffocating blanket of cold snow, is a constant, gnawing fear, a chilling counterpoint to the relief of escaping the wind. Even when not used as a direct shelter, the snow plays a grim, practical role. Corpses, those silent companions of the Gulag, are sometimes moved and covered with snow. They become makeshift windbreaks, their frozen forms providing a temporary, unyielding barrier against the biting gusts that threaten to steal the last vestiges of warmth from the living. It is a macabre collaboration between the dead and the dying, a final, chilling act of utility. The stories circulate among the prisoners how the snow saved some, offering a brief, precious reprieve from the elements, allowing them to endure just a little longer. But just as frequently, it swallowed many more, their shallow graves becoming indistinguishable from the endless white expanse. The dark humor, ever present, offers a morbid jest, sleep in snow, wake up as a snowman. It is a stark reminder that even in this place, humor finds a way to exist, albeit in its most twisted form. You begin to understand that survival in this desolate world demands a perverse embrace of your very enemy. You must use the snow, adapt to it, even as it constantly threatens to claim you, as the desperate chill once again settles deep within your bones. You contemplate the terrifying prospect. Would you bury yourself alive in the snow, risking suffocation, just to survive one more night against the relentless, murderous grip of the Siberian winter? The rhythm of the Gulag is a relentless, brutal cycle designed to break the body and spirit. Each dawn brings forth the same agonizing reality: 16 hours of forced labor. Grueling, back-breaking work in temperatures that defy human endurance. You chop wood, dig frozen earth, haul heavy loads, your muscles screaming in protest, your breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. The body, pushed beyond its limits, responds in predictable ways. But the mind, too, begins to fray under the constant strain of exertion and the pervasive cold. As the sun begins its slow, hesitant descent, casting long, bruised shadows across the snow-covered landscape, your body reaches a point of absolute, profound exhaustion. Your limbs feel like lead. Your head swims with a dizzying fatigue, and your eyelids grow heavy, almost impossible to keep open. When the meager rations are finally consumed, and the command to return to the barracks is given, a powerful, almost irresistible urge for sleep takes hold. Men, utterly depleted, collapse instantly, their bodies giving out before they can even reach the dubious comfort of their bunks. Some fall in the snow, their forms becoming one with the white landscape, their exhaustion overriding every other sensation, even the biting cold. The choice, you realize, is a cruel one, a paradox that gnaws at your will to live. Stop moving, you freeze. Move, you starve. To cease motion means the rapid onset of numbness, the insidious creep of frostbite, the eventual surrender to the cold. But to move, to continue working, demands energy that your body simply does not possess, energy that can only be fueled by the barely there rations, leading to a slower but equally inevitable starvation. It is a no-win situation, a constant, agonizing calculus of suffering. You watch, with a quiet horror, as the camp awakens each morning. The scene is often one of chilling stillness, a landscape dotted with human ice statues, men who collapsed during the night, or fell asleep standing during a brief respite, are found frozen where they fell, their bodies rigid, their faces contorted in silent agony, captured forever in their last moments. The guards, with their characteristic dark humor, would refer to these tragic figures as free sculpture, a macabre collection of human suffering transformed into grotesque art by the brutal hand of winter. In this place, the lines between sleep and death become indistinguishable. Sleep, that most natural and restorative of human needs, is transformed into a perilous gamble, a moment of profound vulnerability where the body might simply cease to function, surrendering to the cold. The exhaustion is so deep, so absolute, that it feels like a heavy blanket, pulling you down into an abyss from which there might be no return. As your own eyes grow heavy and the world begins to blur, you reflect on the ultimate question of this frozen existence, which kills faster. In this desolate, unforgiving land, the gnawing, relentless pangs of hunger, or the insidious, silent embrace of the cold. The brutal reality of the Gulag does not discriminate by gender. Yet for women, the suffering is compounded by an additional layer of terror and degradation. The piercing cold that gnaws at everyone's bones is their constant companion. But it is accompanied by the chilling specter of sexual violence, a pervasive threat that hangs heavy in the frigid air, stealing away any semblance of peace. You observe the women's barracks, a space that, while equally dilapidated and cold as the men's, holds a different kind of tension. To survive the night, they instinctively form groups, pressing their backs against each other. This isn't just a desperate attempt to share and conserve their meager body heat. It is a vital strategy of defense, a fragile wall against the omnipresent danger that lurks in the shadows, not just from the elements, but from the men, both guards and sometimes even fellow prisoners. The collective warmth of bodies, however fleeting, also offers a psychological barrier, a sense of solidarity against the encroaching darkness and the myriad threats it holds. Blankets, those precious scraps of coarse fabric, become more than mere protection from the cold. They become a currency in a horrifying exchange. You hear the hushed, desperate whispers, The stories of women bartering their bodies with guards for a moment of warmth, a shred of a blanket, a chance at an extra spoonful of gruel. The vulnerability is profound, the choices unimaginable, and the cost to their dignity immeasurable. It is a brutal illustration of how desperation can twist morality, forcing women into unimaginable compromises just to cling to the fragile thread of life. The plight of pregnant women is particularly harrowing. You see them, their swollen bellies a poignant symbol of life amidst so much death, forced to lie directly on the icy floors of the barracks. There is no special provision, no concession for their delicate state. The cold seeps into them, threatening both mother and unborn child. A cruel punishment for bringing forth new life in a place designed for its systematic destruction. The nights are filled with their silent suffering, their bodies trembling, their teeth chattering, as they try to protect the fragile life within them from the insidious grip of the frost. Even for the infants born into this frozen hell, there is little hope. Babies, small and vulnerable, are wrapped in whatever rags can be scavenged, their tiny forms struggling against the overwhelming cold. But the very rags meant to protect them often become a source of unintentional harm, suffocating them overnight. Their cries silenced by the desperate attempts to keep them warm. A guard, observing the tragedy, offers a chillingly detached piece of dark humor. Even infants had to learn the Gulag's sleep. It is a stark, brutal reminder that in this desolate place, no one, not even the most innocent, is spared the relentless cruelty of the system. As you witness these heartbreaking scenes, you are forced to confront a terrible question in the Gulag. Who or what was deadlier? The predatory nature of men, or the silent, unrelenting executioner that was the frost? In the vast, frozen expanse of the Gulag, childhood is a concept utterly annihilated, replaced by the grim reality of premature adulthood. Teenagers, their bodies still growing, their spirits still forming, are treated as full adult prisoners, forced to endure the same brutal labor, the same meager rations, and the same soul-crushing cold. But their vulnerability is amplified by the very nature of their developing bodies. You see them, the young ones, their faces gaunt, their eyes too old for their years, struggling to keep pace with the hardened adults. Their small bodies, still lean and lacking the protective layers of fat that might offer a tiny defense, lose heat at an alarmingly rapid rate. The cold, for them, is an even more immediate and profound threat, an accelerated path to hypothermia and oblivion. Their shivers are more pronounced, their blue lips a more vivid testament to the constant, bone-deep chill. During the endless nights in the barracks, a silent, desperate dance of survival unfolds among them. The younger children, desperate for any flicker of warmth, attempt to slip between the larger, adult bodies on the crowded bunks. They burrow into the crevices, seeking to absorb any residual heat, clinging to the proximity of others as if their lives depended on it, which, indeed, they do. These small, fragile forms become almost invisible in the gloom, their presence a quiet, poignant plea for survival, a testament to their instinctual search for warmth. A precious few of these children, often the slightly older ones, are fortunate enough to be assigned dog jobs, menial tasks that offer a small, albeit temporary, reprieve. These assignments might involve helping in the kitchens, tending a boiler, or performing other duties that allow them to be near a source of heat, a flickering fire, or a warm stove. For these children, the privilege of sleeping near the kitchens, of feeling the radiating warmth of the cook fires, is a lifeline. A cherished luxury that vastly increases their chances of seeing another dawn. The irony is bitter, however, as guards would often jest with their usual dark humor, referring to these children as free hot water bottles for the grown, highlighting their utility in a system that saw all prisoners as mere resources. The tragic reality, whispered among the older prisoners with a resigned sadness, is that most of these children, these stolen youths, did not survive their first Siberian winter. Their small, vulnerable bodies simply could not withstand the relentless assault of the cold, the hunger, and the back-breaking labor. The Gulag, with its brutal indifference, swallowed them whole. Their youthful dreams and budding futures extinguished before they ever had a chance to blossom. As you watch a small figure huddle against an adult, a quiet ache settles in your chest. You wonder, with a profound sense of sorrow and despair, if any child, no matter how resilient, how cunning, or how desperate, could truly outlast a Gulag winter night. When the physical suffering of the Gulag becomes an unbearable weight, when the cold gnaws at your flesh and the hunger twists your gut, the mind, that last sanctuary, often becomes both a refuge and a cruel tormentor. As you finally drift into the fitful, exhausted sleep that occasionally graces the barracks, your consciousness, perhaps in a desperate act of self-preservation, retreats into the realm of dreams. In these dreamscapes, the brutal reality of the Gulag dissolves, replaced by vivid, almost painfully real images of a life long lost. You dream of home, of the familiar warmth of your own bed, of soft blankets and the comforting scent of wood smoke from a hearth. You taste the imaginary flavors of bread, fresh and abundant, perhaps even a full, hearty meal with rich, savory meats. Sensations that are almost agonizing in their clarity compared to the constant gnawing of an empty stomach. You see the faces of your family, their smiles warm and welcoming, their voices clear and loving. A stark contrast to the hollowed eyes and grim silence that surrounds you in your waking hours. These dreams are a temporary escape, a fleeting return to a world of comfort and love that feels impossibly distant. But then, with a jolt that rips you from this fragile peace, you wake. The softness of the dream bed evaporates, replaced by the harsh, scratchy reality of a lice-ridden straw mattress, if you are lucky enough to have one. The comforting smells of home are brutally supplanted by the pervasive stench of sweat, blood, and filth. The warmth of your loved ones is replaced by the biting, relentless chill of the Siberian night. The contrast is so stark, so utterly cruel, that it feels like a second, sharper blow. You hear the quiet cries around you, the muffled sobs of men who have shared similar dreams, only to wake to the same crushing reality. Some, their minds pushed to the brink of madness, cry out in a low, despairing voice. Dreams are crueler than reality. For the brief moments of sleep, hope had flickered, only to be brutally extinguished upon awakening, leaving behind an even deeper despair than before. In a fragile act of defiance against the crushing weight of the present, prisoners sometimes whisper lullabies to themselves or to the dark, forgotten corners of the barracks. They recite fragments of poetry, remembered from a gentler time, their voices barely audible above the wind's mournful sigh. These are small, precious attempts to hold on to a shred of humanity, to soothe the tormented mind before it plunges back into the brutal awareness of their surroundings. the dark humor, ever present. Twists even these moments of solace, dream of meat. Wake up with lice. It's a cynical joke, a way to acknowledge the bitter irony of their existence. The mind, you realize, becomes the last refuge, a place where freedom can still be imagined, even if that freedom is shattered with each brutal awakening. And as you try to drift back into the fragile embrace of sleep, you wonder what's left of a person when even your own dreams betray you, becoming an instrument of torment rather than solace. The punishment cells of the Gulag, known as the karcer, are a terrifying echo, a recurring nightmare of isolation and extreme suffering. They are more than just cells. They are meticulously crafted instruments of slow, agonizing death. True Siberian coffins designed to break the will and extinguish the life force of any who dare to defy or simply incur the wrath of their captors. You find yourself, or perhaps you observe others, dragged into this abyss, the heavy door clanging shut with an almost theatrical finality, sealing you in a world of absolute sensory deprivation. The darkness within is suffocating, a palpable presence that presses against your eyes, erasing all distinction between up and down, near and far. It is a darkness so profound that it feels as if light itself has been permanently banished from this tiny, frigid space. Your outstretched hands meet walls that are not merely cold, but utterly sheathed in a thick, shimmering layer of ice. A frozen skin that sucks the warmth from your fingertips on contact. The floor beneath your worn, inadequate boots is a cruel surprise. It is not dry, not even merely frozen earth, but slick with water, or a thin film of ice-cold slush. There is no bedding, no straw, no blanket, not even a single, tattered rag to offer the slightest buffer against the biting cold. The air, heavy and stagnant, carries the unmistakable, metallic tang of ice and the faint, unsettling scent of human despair. There is no fire here, no ember, no flickering flame to offer even a whisper of comfort. It is a place utterly devoid of any source of warmth. A vacuum designed to accelerate hypothermia. In this horrifying environment, inmates rarely lasted beyond 3 nights. Each hour stretches into an eternity, a slow-motion descent into numbness and oblivion. The cold is so absolute that it feels as if it is not just external, but internal, freezing your very blood, stiffening your muscles, and clouding your thoughts. In a desperate, heartbreaking attempt to leave some trace of their existence, some prisoners, you hear, would scratch fragments of poems, names, or dates into the ice-coated walls with their fingernails. Tiny, ephemeral etchings that would soon be covered by new layers of frost. These are the silent, heartbreaking cries for recognition, for remembrance. In a place where individuality is ruthlessly erased. The guards, with their characteristic, chillingly detached humor, would refer to these cells as Siberian yoga, a grotesque mockery of bodily discipline in a place where bodies were systematically destroyed. Most who entered these frozen cells never came out alive, their lives extinguished by the relentless cold, the suffocating darkness, and the profound isolation. As the memory of these cells presses in on you, you are forced to confront the agonizing choice once more. Would you take the brutal, physical whip outside, its pain sharp and swift? Or would you willingly enter the slow, silent embrace of the coffin of ice inside, awaiting a lingering, frigid demise? In the Gulag, every human need is distorted, every comfort commodified, and every instinct for survival reduced to a brutal transaction: sleep. that most fundamental requirement for human health, transforms from a simple act of rest into a precious, coveted commodity, a high-stakes currency in a desperate marketplace where humanity itself is for sale. You witness the subtle, almost imperceptible negotiations that take place in the barracks. Hushed conversations, barely audible above the wind's mournful sigh and the collective shivering. A torn, grimy blanket, once a common household item, becomes a treasure beyond measure, its value skyrocketing in this frigid environment. It is traded not just for bread, the lifeblood of survival, but for the promise of warmth, for a few precious hours of reprieve from the biting cold. To possess a blanket is to hold power, to have a temporary claim on life itself. The bunks, those narrow, button wooden shelves that serve as beds, also become part of this chilling economy. A warmer bunk, one closer to the rudimentary stove, or perhaps less exposed to the cruel drafts, is not merely a stroke of luck. It is an asset. Prisoners, desperate for any advantage, would trade a portion of their meager daily bread, or even a future favor, for the chance to occupy such a coveted spot. The unspoken agreement is grim surrender, a piece of your sustenance, or your dignity, for a slightly better chance at seeing the morning light. Even the guards, the arbiters of suffering, participate in this macabre commerce. You hear the whispers, the rumors of guards selling scraps of rags, fragments of cloth that in any other world would be dismissed as garbage for gold teeth. Extracted from the mouths of desperate prisoners, the glint of gold, a stark contrast to the pervasive grime, becomes a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice for a fleeting, almost insignificant comfort. It is a chilling testament to the utter devaluation of human life, where a tooth is worth more than a man's last shred of dignity. Among the prisoners themselves, a harsh hierarchy emerges, a brutal system of taxation. The strong, those with a lingering physical might or a more cunning ruthlessness, often exploited the weak. They would demand a portion of their rations, a meager possession, or even physical service, in exchange for the unspoken permission to share a sliver of their warmth, to huddle close to their body heat. It is a perverse parody of a social contract, where the vulnerable are preyed upon by those who still possess a sliver of power. The dark humor, as always, surfaces to describe this grim reality. Wall Street. Gulag edition, they'd sneer, a bitter jest at the utter corruption of human interaction. Sleep, you realize with a profound sense of despair, becomes a business in the Gulag, a transaction where every aspect of humanity is for sale, its price paid in suffering. As the cold once again presses in, you find yourself contemplating the ultimate question: what, truly, would you trade? What precious part of yourself would you relinquish for just one more night alive? In the face of relentless physical torment, spiritual and emotional fortitude becomes as vital as physical endurance. When the body is ravaged by cold and hunger, and the mind teeters on the brink of despair, for many, faith emerges as a quiet, powerful force, a fragile but potent shield against the encroaching darkness. As the long, terrifying nights descend upon the barracks, a profound stillness often settles over the huddled forms, before succumbing to the restless, fitful sleep. You observe, and sometimes join, the quiet rituals of devotion. Prisoners, their faces etched with the lines of suffering, bow their heads in silent prayer. The words are not spoken aloud, for fear of retribution, but are whispered internally, or mouthed with barely perceptible movements of the lips. These are not grand, communal prayers of a church, but intensely personal appeals. murmured requests for strength, for endurance, for a fleeting moment of peace in the heart of hell. Hidden carefully beneath the lice-ridden straw, tucked away in the deepest recesses of their meager belongings, small wooden crosses or other religious artifacts often lie concealed. These are more than mere symbols. They are tangible links to a world of belief, a reminder of a higher power that, even in this godless place, might still offer solace. The feel of the rough wood against their skin, or the faint outline of the cross beneath their palm, offers a quiet reassurance, a grounding presence in a universe that has gone completely mad. For many, faith provides the ultimate reason to wake each morning, a flicker of purpose that transcends the immediate, overwhelming suffering. It is the belief that beyond this temporary, agonizing existence, there lies a different kind of eternity, a hope for redemption, for peace, for reunion. This spiritual anchor, however tenuous, keeps the spark of life from being completely extinguished, offering a quiet defiance against the system's attempts to annihilate every aspect of human dignity. You hear the soft, almost inaudible murmurs of Scripture, whispered in freezing breaths, fragments of familiar verses that resonate with promises of hope and strength. These words, remembered from a distant life, become a form of silent lullaby, a spiritual balm in the face of absolute despair. The dark humor, ever present even in moments of quiet reverence, might offer a cynical twist. God warms the soul, but not the feet. It is a stark acknowledgement of the physical reality, yet it also highlights the profound truth that faith, in its own way, offers a different kind of warmth, one that no guard can steal, no cold can penetrate. Belief, you come to understand, becomes a metaphorical blanket, wrapping the soul in a layer of resilience that defies the brutal realities of the Gulag. And as you feel the pervasive, bone-chilling cold, you wonder if faith, that intangible essence of hope, could truly keep your heart warm even at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or if it too would eventually succumb to the relentless grip of the Siberian night. In the profound silence of the Gulag night, broken only by the howl of the wind and the soft shivers of hundreds of desperate men, human connection and the enduring power of culture find a way to manifest. When conversation is dangerous and hope feels like a fleeting dream, songs, poems, and stories become a fragile, yet potent, defiance against the suffocating despair. You lie in the darkness, the cold seeping into your every joint, when a faint sound begins to emerge from the huddled forms around you. It starts as a low, almost imperceptible hum, then deepens into a soft, melodic murmur. Prisoners, their voices thin from hunger and suffering, begin to sing folk songs, familiar melodies from their homelands, often sung under their breath, or with a quiet, collective hum. These are not loud, joyous anthems, but mournful, reflective tunes that carry the weight of memory, of loss, and of a longing for a life that seems impossibly distant. Each note is a thread, weaving together the disparate souls into a momentary tapestry of shared humanity. Beyond the songs, you hear the hushed recitation of poems, fragments of verses remembered from school or from beloved books, their words whispered into the frigid air. And then there are the stories, narratives spun from memory, from imagination, or from the dark realities of their imprisonment. A single tale, told with careful pacing and soft intonation, could captivate 50 men, holding their frayed sanity intact, transporting them, however briefly, beyond the confines of the barrack walls until sleep finally claims them. These are acts of communal solace, a fragile attempt to keep the mind engaged, to remind each other of a world where beauty and narrative still existed. The guards, ever vigilant, are quick to punish any noise, any sound that disrupts the oppressive silence they seek to enforce. The crack of a whip, a shouted command, or a brutal beating is the swift consequence for any perceived infraction. Yet, despite the terrifying risk, the voices still rise, softly, defiantly. They are not shouts of rebellion, but quiet murmurs of endurance, a testament to the unquenchable human spirit. The collective breath of the singing men, their shared sighs and hums, becomes a rhythm, a gentle, almost hypnotic lullaby that offers a fleeting sense of security in an insecure world. The dark humor of the Gulag, never far, finds a way to describe even these moments of fragile artistry. The Gulag choir teeth chattering in harmony, they jest, acknowledging the grim reality beneath the melodic sounds. But for those enduring the night, these songs and stories are more than just noise. They are a vital, fragile piece of culture, a beacon of light in a frozen hell. They are a reminder that even when bodies are broken and spirits are crushed, the human capacity for art, for connection, for shared experience, can still find a way to breathe. As you listen, your own cold, tired body finding a strange, momentary comfort in the shared sound. You wonder, with a profound sense of awe, if music, in its purest, most desperate form, could truly save the soul while the body slowly, relentlessly froze. The barracks, with its layers of suffering, often present a scene of macabre intimacy. In this world where survival clings to the barest thread, the presence of death is not a rare occurrence, but a nightly ritual. You learn to recognize the subtle shift in a bunkmate's stillness, the quiet cessation of their shivering, the final, soft exhale that marks the end of their struggle. Yet, even in death, these bodies still serve a purpose for the living. As the night deepens and the cold penetrates every fiber of the wooden walls, seeping into the straw and the very air you breathe, the corpses are often left in their bunks. To move them would require precious energy, and their removal is a task reserved for the grim efficiency of the morning light. You lie there, your body trembling uncontrollably, feeling the insidious chill creeping into your extremities. And a terrible, pragmatic realization dawns upon you. The body beside you, though still and cold, still retains a faint echo of warmth, a last, lingering residue of the life that once resided within. The instinct to survive overrides all revulsion, all fear. You find yourself pressing closer, your shivering body seeking any shred of heat, any barrier against the merciless frost. You press against the stiffening form of your deceased bunkmate, drawing what little warmth remains, your skin making contact with theirs, a chilling yet life-saving embrace. It is an act born of utter desperation, a grim dance with oblivion, where the dead inadvertently become an ally, offering their final, chilling gift to the living. Sometimes, the act is more than just pragmatic. You witness men clinging to these lifeless forms, not just for warmth, but for something else entirely. Perhaps it is a desperate attempt to hold on to a shred of companionship, a final refusal to let go of a comrade who, just hours before, was breathing, shivering, and suffering alongside them. It is a heartbreaking sight, a poignant demonstration of human connection in the face of absolute despair, where the lines between the living and the dead blur into a single, tragic tableau. By morning, when the guards finally make their rounds, the scene is often one of stark horror. They drag out both the dead and, sometimes, the living who are still clinging to them, so deeply entwined that they are almost indistinguishable. The dark humor of the guards offers another cynical jab. The quietest roommate you'll ever have. They'd sneer, their voices devoid of any true mirth. Death, you come to understand with a sickening certainty, becomes not just an end, but a bedfellow, an intimate presence in the relentless struggle for survival. As you close your eyes, your body aching with cold and exhaustion, you cannot help but wonder, with a profound and chilling dread, if your bunkmate still breathes, or if their silence is merely a prelude to your own eventual, frozen slumber. For those who miraculously survived the unforgiving nightmare of the Gulag, the struggle did not end when they finally walked free from the gates. The Gulag, with its bone-chilling cold and soul-crushing despair, never truly left those who left it. Its horrors burrowed deep into the mind and body, leaving behind invisible scars that continued to torment them long after the physical chains were removed. You hear the accounts, the hushed confessions of survivors, of how they could never truly sleep in warmth again. The comfort of a soft bed, a heated room, became a source of profound discomfort, even terror. Drenched in sweat, they would wake with a start, their bodies shaking, their minds replaying the familiar terrors of the barracks. The warmth, once so desperately sought, now triggered a primal fear, a reawakening of the ingrained trauma. Nightmares became a constant companion, relentless and vivid. The piercing howl of the Siberian wind, the rustle of lice-ridden straw, the incessant itching on their skin, the frozen screams of comrades, the desperate, silent pleas for warmth. These were the nightly specters that haunted their minds. Sleep, rather than offering rest, became another battlefield, a relentless replay of the horrors they had endured. PTSD, though not named as such then, manifested in its cruelest forms, debilitating insomnia, sudden panic attacks triggered by a drop in temperature or a sudden draft, and night terrors that left them screaming into the empty darkness of their newfound freedom. The physical marks, too, lingered. The lice, those ubiquitous parasites that infested every living thing in the Gulag, left behind permanent scars on their skin. Small, raised bumps, discolored patches, and the faint, unsettling sensation of phantom crawling would remain for life. A constant, tangible reminder of the dehumanizing conditions they had survived. These were not just physical blemishes. They were badges of a suffering so profound that it seeped into the very fabric of their being. The dark humor, once a coping mechanism, also evolved. You hear survivors speak with a wry, hollow laugh. Even free men still hear their teeth chatter. It is a stark acknowledgement that the cold, the hunger, the fear, the very essence of the Gulag, had become an indelible part of their internal landscape. The echoes of the Gulag night, the profound, unyielding cold, and the constant threat of death, never truly faded. They resonated within the survivors, a quiet but persistent thrum beneath the surface of their new lives. They understood, with a deep, aching certainty, that while their bodies might have escaped, their minds, their very souls, carried the indelible imprint of that frozen nightmare. And as you consider their lingering pain, you wonder, with a quiet sense of dread, if anyone, truly, could ever escape the Gulag nights, or if their ghosts would forever walk beside them. As we gently pull back from this harrowing journey, the full, devastating truth of the Gulag's winter begins to unfold, revealing a horror far greater than mere human cruelty. It is a truth measured not in bullets, but in breaths stolen by the frost, in lives consumed by the unforgiving silence of the Siberian night. More prisoners, you now understand with chilling clarity, succumbed to the relentless grip of the cold than to the direct violence of their captors. Stalin, the architect of this vast, sprawling system of dehumanization, effectively weaponized winter itself, turning the vast, desolate landscape into his most loyal and efficient executioner. The very act of sleep, that most natural and restorative human need, was transformed within the Gulag into a perilous battlefield. Each night became a relentless struggle against the insidious cold, a desperate gamble where consciousness often meant survival, and unconsciousness, a slip into eternal stillness. The simple act of closing your eyes was a surrender to immense vulnerability, a moment where the body might simply cease its vital functions, giving in to the slow, creeping numbness that promised oblivion. The silence of the barracks at dawn, before the guards' brutal reveille, was often broken only by the quiet, agonizing discovery of another frozen form, another life extinguished by the night. Survival in this frozen hell did not belong to the strongest, to those with the greatest physical might or the most robust health. Instead, it was claimed by the most adaptable, by those who possessed an uncanny resilience, an almost animalistic cunning to navigate the impossible conditions. It was the ability to find warmth where none existed, to share a breath of air, to make a desperate trade, to cling to a corpse, or to burrow into the snow. These were the true tests of endurance, a testament to the extraordinary, often horrific, lengths to which the human spirit would go to cling to life. The dark humor, a constant companion in the abyss, offers a final grim acknowledgement of this reality. Gulag Medal of Honor. If you still snore, you win. It is a testament to the perverse nature of victory in this place, where the simple act of breathing, of making a sound in your sleep, becomes the ultimate triumph. The memoirs of those who endured, these chilling, poignant accounts, remain frozen echoes of unimaginable suffering, their words etched into history like frost on a window pane. They speak of a night that never truly ended, a darkness that lingered in the mind and body long after the prison gates were left behind. And as you now prepare for your own night, nestled in warmth and comfort, you cannot help but reflect, with a profound and quiet unease, if your sleep tonight, truly, is as peaceful as you imagine.